Revealed, this grandmother's incredible beach house journey with 30 friends transformed our lives. Grandma Rosie stared at the old beach house, a relic of laughter and shared memories. The peeling paint and creaking boards echoed the joy her late husband and she used to share here. Now, at 68, newly widowed, this place felt more like an empty shell than a haven. But it was bequeathed to her, a gift from a dear friend long gone. Her heart filled with hope as she envisioned a revival not only for the house but for the friendships that had been her lifelines through years of teaching and community service. Rosie called her friends, 30 warm spirits ready to embrace this challenge. There was Linda, juggling her kids and loneliness with a brave smile. Marco, uncertain and anxious about bills piling up. And Susan, whose heart felt like a foggy day after the loss of her partner. Together, they gathered their tools, ready to transform this beach house into a vibrant retreat. The sun glistened on the surf, and Rosie felt a spark of excitement. As they hammered nails and painted walls, the beach house began to glow with potential, but cracks started to appear not only in the structure but within their circle. Long-held resentments bubbled to the surface. "Why do you always take charge, Rosie?" Marco snapped, frustration peeking through. Linda's sigh cut through the air. "This isn't just about you." Rosie winced, her heart heavy. While they worked side by side, emotions clashed like waves against the shore. Old rivalries resurfaced, and disagreements spiraled into accusations. Each voice grew louder, competing with the cries of seagulls, and Rosie feared the house wouldn't hold the weight of their conflicts. Her vision of unity began to slip away, shifting like sand beneath their feet. The friendships that had weathered life's tempests now felt fragile. Just as they thought they could throw their differences aside, a storm loomed on the horizon. The skies darkened, and an icy wind howled, transporting the tension inside them outdoors. The storm hit hard, rattling the walls of their beloved beach house. Raindrops lashed against the windows as panic coursed through Rosie's veins. "We need to save it," she yelled. As they scrambled to protect their shared sanctuary, emotions got even more frayed. "It's just a house," Susan cried. "Is that all we care about?" Her voice shook, echoing through the chaos, and all Rosie could think was, "What is happening to us?" The cyclone of doubts and fears whirled inside her as she grasped for clarity amid the storm's fury. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the winds howled and raindrops hammered down, the gathered friends found themselves trapped by forces greater than any they've faced together. Their hearts raced as they confronted not just the storm outside, but the tempests within. Would they unite? Or let their ties shatter like glass? Rosie held on to a flicker of hope, desperate for their strength as a community to emerge amidst the wreckage. The door of the beach house creaked ominously, a reminder that their story was far from over. Would this storm be the end or a reckoning of what truly mattered? The storm roared on, battering the beach house like an unresolved argument. Rosie braced herself against a doorway, the cold wind whipping her hair like the worries inside her mind. She could barely tell where the sound of the storm ended and the sound of her friends' cries began. The house felt alive, trembling under nature's weight. "Get the shutters," Marco shouted. His face was a mix of fear and anger. Rosie could see his hands tremble as he tried to pull the flimsy wooden shutters into place. She rushed over, her heart pounding. Every instinct told her to stay united, but the storm inside was just as fierce as the one outside. "I know this is hard," she said, grounding her voice. "But we can't let this place go. It's not just a building. But what does it mean if we're falling apart?" Susan's voice cut through the noise, fierce and vulnerable. There it was again, the question that had been haunting them all, lying beneath the surface of their work and laughter. Could their friendship stand the test of time? In that moment, Rosie felt a swell of something deep, a need to mend. Let us take a break, she suggested, pushing through the chaos. We need to talk. The friends hesitated. Everyone was exhausted, their faces pinched with concern. Still, one by one, they started to gather in the dim room, where the winds rattled the windows like their fraught emotions. Rosie could see the tension between them, a palpable thing, coursing through the air. Why did we come here? Rosie asked, her voice much softer now. We wanted to rebuild, to celebrate. But somehow, we're losing sight of each other. Linda crossed her arms, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I thought this would be a fresh start for us all, not another battleground. Her confession hung in the air like a bitter truth. Marco, who had seemed so brazen only moments ago, looked down, guilt flickering across his features. I didn't mean to lash out. It's just life has thrown so much at all of us. I thought we were united in this. But we're not, Susan interjected, frustration barely contained. We're all just fumbling through. What was once simple is now filled with doubt and fear. Silence washed over the group. Rosie looked around. They were struggling, yet she could see the spark of yearning for reconciliation hiding behind their exhaustion. They had each come to this place prepared for restoration. And here, they were, facing the tempest together. They say storms clear a path, Rosie said slowly, a thought forming in her mind. What if this turmoil is revealing what we really need to address, not just with the house but with each other? Maybe it's time we got real about our fears. The friends shifted, murmurs beginning to weave through the group. Rosie felt hope flutter in her chest, fragile but alive. Let us start being honest. Each of us can share how we're really feeling separate from all this chaos. As they opened up, the storm outside seemed to subside a little, allowing a glimpse of the sun breaking through the clouds. Tensions began to dissipate like the calming waves after a tumultuous tide. Laughter returned, even through their raw truths. They shared stories of their struggles, their joys, and how often they tried to hold everything together on their own. With every word spoken, the feeling of unity rekindled like a warm beach fire. Rosie glanced at each of her friends, feeling the distance close, noticing how their eyes sparkled with understanding. All of them needed this reckoning, this truth-telling, but just as the air filled with warmth, an ominous crack of thunder reminded them of the storm's presence. Dark clouds still lingered over the horizon, and Rosie knew this was only the beginning of their battle. Facing each other was just one part. Outside, the real storm raged. What would happen next? How would they protect not just the house, but their friendships, now laid bare? As tension merged with hope, Rosie took a deep breath. Perhaps the hardest battles were yet to come, and they would have to fight together to face what awaited them. Inside the house, the five friends sat in a circle, the dim light flickering around them, highlighting the mix of tension and tentative hope lingering in the air. The storm thundered on outside, each boom shaking the old walls, almost echoing their internal fracas. Nobody's perfect, Rosie urged, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling outside. She felt the need to mend deepen, pushing her to say what had been left unsaid for too long. We've all faced our own battles. We're dealing with loss, change. Our lives are taking turns we never expected. It's okay. Susan wiped away a tear, nodding slowly. I thought we could come here and everything would magically be better. I wanted to reconnect, but I feel so lost. We all feel lost, Marco chimed in, his voice taking on a softer tone. I keep thinking if I could just get a grip on my life, everything would fall into place. But it's not that simple. I feel like I've been drifting away from all of you. Linda's arms unfolded as she leaned forward, her eyes earnest. I've been feeling like I'm not a part of this group anymore. It's like we're holding back, afraid to share what really matters. And I don't want to lose you all. Rosie sensed the walls crumbling, the weight of unshared burdens lifting ever so slightly. She felt their connection shimmer beneath the distress, ready to be acknowledged. Then let us not hold back, she insisted. We're all here for a reason. This place is filled with memories we've shared and new ones we're making. As they all began to talk, their voices found rhythm amid the storm's clamor. Marco admitted his fear of failure, Susan spoke of the isolation she felt during the pandemic, Linda shared her anxieties about her job, and Rosie revealed her struggles to balance the past with a hopeful future. Each story was a thread woven into the fabric of their friendship. They laughed, cried, and supported one another through the emotional ebbs and flows. In those moments, the room took on a life of its own, filled with the warm glow of understanding and compassion. The storm outside seemed to fade into the background, becoming nothing but a distant growl. Just then, the power flickered, and darkness briefly enveloped the room. In the hush that followed, a collective intake of breath filled the space. Rosie's heart raced as she felt the weight of their shared honesty hanging thick in the air. This wasn't just about addressing the chaos of the beach house anymore. They were digging into their hearts, exposing raw truths, and that was terrifying yet freeing. As lights returned, Susan's voice broke the lingering silence. "We're in this together, right? Through everything?" Together, the others echoed, their voices steady, each one a promise of support. Yet, outside, the storm raged on, fierce as ever. Rosie glanced toward the windows, anxiety creeping back in. "We need to regroup. We've been open, but we can't let the storm keep our spirits low. We need to find a way to protect this house and each other." The others nodded, determination sparking anew among them. They started brainstorming ideas on how to check the house, reinforce the shutters, and stand watch together until the storm passed. The plan brought a sense of purpose, igniting their motivation. But as Rosie glanced toward the darkening sky, her heart surged with a new fear. What if the storm didn't just threaten the house? What if it tested their friendship in ways they hadn't even imagined? For a moment, the weight of the unknown dropped heavy. And as they began to prepare for the worst, Rosie couldn't shake the lingering thought: would this storm bring them closer or tear them apart once and for all? As the storm continued to howl outside, the group's energy shifted from heartfelt revelations to urgent preparations. Rosie stood, grounding herself. "Okay, let us start with the windows. Marco, you and Linda check the ones in the living room. Susan, come with me to the kitchen." They all jumped into action, fueled by adrenaline and a shared sense of responsibility. The howling wind and pounding rain created a symphony of chaos beyond the walls. Inside, however, they found refuge in their teamwork. Marco and Linda wrestled with the heavy shutters, rain splattering against the glass as the gusts threatened to pull them apart. "I can't believe we let it get this bad," Marco grunted, the effort visible on his face. "This storm hit out of nowhere. That's how life is sometimes, isn't it?" Linda replied, her voice steady even as she fought against the wind's force. "We just have to adapt." In the kitchen, Rosie and Susan moved as a well-rehearsed team. They secured the last of the loose dishes and pushed the table closer to the door. Rosie caught a glimpse of Susan's furrowed brow, a mix of focus and fear crossing her features. "Are you okay?" Rosie asked softly. "I don't know. I just feel so alone sometimes," Susan admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes glistening. "Even when I'm surrounded by people." Rosie paused, understanding flooding her. She reached out, squeezing Susan's hand. "You're not alone. We might not know everything we're going through, but we're figuring it out together. Just reach out, okay? Like this." They shared a smile, one that was laden with hope. It felt comforting in the chaos, a small light pushing against the darkness surrounding them. Meanwhile, Marco paused to catch his breath, glancing outside. "Hey, are we sure this house can really hold up?" he asked, his voice creaking as much as the old wood beneath their feet. "We've got each other, right?" Linda quipped, nudging him playfully. "Number one rule, friends support each other. Besides, this house has survived worse than an angry storm." Rosie's heart warmed at the camaraderie, but she felt a pull of anxiety, the weight of unspoken challenges still lurking in the background. "Just remember," she started, gathering everyone's attention, "once we're safely settled, we can talk again. Our struggles are part of us, but they don't define us." They all nodded, their resolve growing amidst the uncertainty. As each window was finally secured and the patio furniture was brought inside, the house stood as a barrier between them and the storm. The air was thick with a mixture of dampness and resilience. Yet, Rosie felt that there was still a storm brewing beneath the surface of their friendship, an emotional tempest that hadn't been fully addressed. Suddenly, there was a loud crack of thunder that rattled the very foundation of the house. Screams erupted as lights flickered again, plunging them deep into darkness. Each person froze, the atmosphere heavy with the crackling tension of unresolved feelings. "Did you hear that?" Rosie whispered, her heart racing. "What was that?" Susan clutched Rosie's arm, her nails digging in. "What if it's worse than we thought? What if we're not prepared for what comes next?" Their fears danced in the darkness. As the storm raged and uncertainty loomed, the light of their shared promise flickered dimly. Would they find shelter in each other, or would the unraveling of truths lead to the ultimate test of their bond? As the wind wailed and the rain fell, a thought emerged in Rosie's mind: maybe, just maybe, the real storm was yet to come. The thunder rumbled again, echoing like a warning throughout the darkened space. Rosie's heart raced. She could feel the weight of fear gripping the room, tightening around them like a noose. The silence that followed the thunder was thicker than the rain pounding against the roof. "Let us not freak out," Marco's voice cut through the dread that hung in the air. "We still have each other, right?" But his forced bravado barely masked the tremor in his voice. Linda responded with a soft nod, her lips pressed together in an effort to keep calm. "Okay," Rosie offered, trying to fill the silence. "Let us find some candles. It'll help brighten things up, at least a little." She felt the urgency to maintain some sense of normalcy, even while chaos unraveling outside echoed the turmoil within their hearts. They stumbled through the darkness, reaching for the stairs that led to the upper level. Shadows flitted around them, and as Rosie climbed the stairwell, she felt an uneasy sensation creep up her spine. It was the feeling of secrets rising just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to burst forth. Just like the storm, once at the top, she flicked on her phone's flashlight. The beam cut sharply through the murkiness, illuminating faces that were strained with anxiety. "Here," Rosie said, locating an old box filled with forgotten candles. She grabbed a handful, the wax slick and cool against her palm. "Let us light them up downstairs," Susan suggested, her voice steadier than before. The collective push from the group, driven by hope, began to replace their hesitation. As they gathered close, they strategically lit the candles, placing them around the living room. The soft glow of yellow flames danced, casting long shadows on the walls. It felt like a sanctuary against the raging storm outside. Once the room was illuminated, they all picked their spots, some sitting on the furniture while others leaned against the walls. Rosie gazed at each one of her friends, the flickering light dancing in their eyes, reminding her of the beauty and fragility of their connections. "I'm glad we're together right now," Linda said, breaking the lingering silence. "When everything feels like it's crashing down, I don't think I could face it alone." Marco looked around the circle, his brow furrowed. "So, what's the plan if things get worse?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Rosie took a deep breath, sensing the tension in the air again. "If things do go south, we stay together. We pull through as a team, just like we've always done." She placed a hand on her heart, wishing to instill reassurance. "We can't control the storm outside, but we can control how we face it. As friends." The group nodded, the feeling of unity filling the room. Yet, as they exchanged glances, Rosie caught a glimpse of something unspoken lurking just beneath the surface. Feelings of anxiety, guilt, and unresolved issues weighed heavily on everyone's hearts, possibly more suffocating than the storm outside. "Guys," Susan hesitated, her voice faltering. "I think we need to talk about what's been bothering us." Before she could continue, the house shook fiercely with another clap of thunder, furious and unyielding. The lights flickered once more before plunging them back into darkness, leaving only the flickering candles to chase away the shadows. Panic settled in again as they huddled closer together, the temperature dropping, intensifying the flickering flames' fragility. "Rosie, I don't know if I can handle the truth right now," Susan said, trembling slightly. A new wave of tension flooded the room, dense and unrelenting. Rosie understood then that the storm wasn't just raging outside, it was swirling within them too. She took a deep breath, prepared to confront what lay ahead. Whatever it is, we can face it. Together as a ghostly howling wind echoed around them, it began those buried truths inching closer to the surface. Would they weather the emotional deluge, or would the storm within tear them asunder? It was time to find out. What truths would surface and at what cost? The candles flickered like weak fireflies in a storm as tension crackled among them. Rosie squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, pushing against the mounting fear. The wind outside howled as if it were alive, but it was the secrets of the past whispering among her friends that churned her stomach. Maybe we should play a game? Something to take our minds off this? Marco suggested, trying to lighten the mood. But his voice carried an edge of desperation, as if the very act of pretending everything was all right was becoming too heavy to bear. No games, Susan said, her voice stronger now, piercing through the softness of the moment. I think it's time we let everything out. Rosie opened her eyes, meeting Susan's gaze. The intensity of the moment hung thick in the air, and she could feel the shifts in her friend's body language: shifting feet, crossed arms, eyes that darted to the walls as if they might find an escape. What if Linda started, her voice barely above a whisper? What if we actually shared the things we're scared of? Not just about this storm, but about life? The room fell silent, their hearts thumping as one. Each of them was wrestling with fears of failure, loneliness, love, and the weight of unspoken words. They were tangled in webs of expectations and disappointments, with the storm outside acting as a catalyst to finally break free of their silences. I'll start, Susan offered, her eyes glistening in the candlelight. I've been feeling so alone lately. Even when I'm surrounded by people, there's this emptiness inside. I didn't know how to say it. I thought maybe it would just go away. I get that, Marco interjected, his voice suddenly firm. I thought I was the only one. I thought that being strong meant keeping it all to myself. I've been struggling, too. Like I don't fit into my own life anymore. Rosie felt her heart tighten in her chest. It's so easy to pretend, right? To keep up appearances. But I'm scared I'll never be good enough or that I'll always mess things up. Each friend was revealing pieces of themselves, and she realized how brave they all were for voicing the truths that had held them captive. Linda swallowed hard, her expression a mix of sorrow and determination. We're all trying to live up to something. Something we think others expect of us. But what if we let that go? What if we supported each other instead of judging? I want to be truthful. I want to be free. Her voice cracked as emotion poured out. We're here because we care about each other, Rosie said, her voice now a steady anchor in the tumult. Let us break this cycle of feeling like we're on our own. Let us be vulnerable. Their confessions hung in the air, a bittersweet balance of weight and relief. Each of them shared their demons, and with every word, it felt like the storm outside calmed, like it was listening. Each candle flicker reflected their fear and hope, providing light for their darkness. Then came another clap of thunder, louder and more ferocious than before, and Rosie felt her breath hitch. Was it merely the storm or did it symbolize something more? A turning point? They were being called to confront more than just their fears. They were being asked to step into their truths and embrace the vulnerability that connected them. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, startling them all. The ground shook beneath them. What was that? Linda gasped, her eyes wide with alarm. The wind howled again, and Rosie felt the ground beneath her distorting. Their candid circle had stirred something deep, something they couldn't turn back from now. What if we don't just talk about it? Susan said, her voice rising with excitement. What if we take action? What if we make this night mean something beyond fear? As they exchanged looks of confusion and determination, Rosie's heart raced. All the burdens of the past could lead them to change, but it also meant confronting their deepest wounds. Little did they know, reality was about to break through more fiercely than the storm outside. The room held a tense silence, every heartbeat demanding clarity. The adrenaline was palpable, it surged through Rosie like a live wire. She opened her mouth to speak, but words wouldn't come. The moment felt monumental, like they were standing on the precipice of something life-changing. What if we Rosie finally managed to voice her growing idea? Didn't he just talk about our fears but actually took a step toward facing them? What if we, I don't know, shared something we always wanted to do? Something that scares us, but in a good way? Marco glanced at her, hope sparking in his eyes. You mean, like a challenge? Yeah, Rosie said, buoyed by his enthusiasm. A challenge where we push ourselves out of our comfort zones. Linda leaned forward, her brow furrowed. What if we came up with a big goal we could work toward together? Something that feels impossible but would mean so much. Susan's face lit up. Like a weekend trip. Somewhere we all love. Or something we've never done before, Marco chimed in. Skydiving? A marathon? A road trip? The idea spread through the group like wildfire, igniting excitement amidst the fear. Rosie could see her friends visibly relaxing, the tension in the room shifted to a buzz of eagerness. We could do it right after this storm. Take a leap and make some unforgettable memories. Wait, Linda said, raising a hand with a grin. Can we think of something a little less extreme? Maybe something we can still tackle together, without running the risk of falling out of a plane? Laughter broke the tension, dissolving remnants of dread, but then, the laughter faded and was replaced by a sudden, almost eerie stillness. As if the universe halted in anticipation. Okay, let us do this. Susan breathed, her eyes sparkling with determination. How about a beach weekend? We've always talked about that summer house, right? I know Grandma would let us stay. Rosie's heart fluttered. The beach was a place filled with memories, warmth, and comfort. That would be perfect. She exclaimed, the thought of the waves and the salty air washing over her like a balm. I can drive. Marco volunteered. I'll make sure we have enough snacks and playlists. This could be epic. They all banded together, brainstorming details and laughing about long-forgotten moments at the beach, their shared past becoming a beautiful tapestry of dreams and aspirations. They talked about the games they'd play, the food they'd cook, and the sunrises they'd witness, but amid the chatter, Rosie felt a flicker of doubt creeping in. It was one thing to voice a desire, it was another to turn it into reality. But what if it doesn't happen? What if the storm doesn't pass, or we can't afford it? Her voice faltered. Those are thoughts we can't afford to carry right now. Linda said, her eyes fierce. We just have to believe, and let us plan it out. If we place our fears in front of us, we won't let them hold us back. Yet, as enthusiasm swelled again, Rosie's mind was whirring. Maybe it was the storm that night, or perhaps the fears they had shared, but something in her felt different, more alive. But would they really follow through? In that moment, another deafening crash of thunder rolled through outside, rattling the windows and plunging them back into tension. The storm might have been outside, but suddenly Rosie felt a storm brewing within her too, anticipation, uncertainty, and a flicker of excitement. All right, she said, voice steady now, what's the first step? They all looked at each other as the wind screamed louder, embracing the chaos outside. Little did they know, beyond personal secrets, they were teetering on the edge of something monumental, a journey that could transform their lives forever. Would Rosie find the courage to leap into her own story, alongside her friends? And would they allow the tides of their past to guide them into this new adventure? Or would the storm cloud their attempts altogether? The wind howled outside, cutting through the air with an intensity that mirrored Rosie's racing thoughts. The excitement had ignited hope in the room, but with hope came insecurity. What's the first step? She asked again, this time with a tremor of certainty. Let us vote on it. Susan suggested, drawing a laughter-filled response. There was something about the simplicity of that idea that made it all feel a bit more tangible. They gathered close together, forming a tight huddle as if it would shield them from the storm that raged just outside their small sanctuary. Okay, hands in the middle. Marco grinned, raising his own hand, the enthusiasm infectious. One by one, they all joined until the pile of hands formed a small mountain of solidarity. On the count of 3, he counted, we shout beach. Ready? Rosie felt a delightful thrill rush through her. Everything seemed possible now. 1, 2, 3 beach. Beach! They all shouted, laughter spilling over in joyous waves. The word hung in the air, merging with the thunder. It was their promise, an anchor against whatever uncertainty awaited them. Once the cheers subsided, Linda's face showed sudden seriousness. All right, we need to plan this seriously. We'll call Grandma tomorrow, see what's available. And we have to think of how to fund it, maybe a bake sale? A bake sale. Susan echoed, her bouncy energy returning full force. And I can make cupcakes. My secret recipe is to die for. And I can help. Marco chimed in. I'll make brownies. We'll sell every last one. Suddenly, all absent moments of fear seemed to vanish, replaced by strong determination. Rosie watched her friends rallying around their cause, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. The softer moments would weave into bigger plans, and together they could create something monumental. What about other ways to raise funds? Cautiously, Rosie began to brainstorm, her heart swelling with the powerful notion of collaboration. We could offer to do yard work for some of the neighbors. A little manual labor in exchange for funds? Yes. Susan clapped her hands. Let us make flyers. It's genius. Rosie's heart started to calm now. The storm outside was shaping their plans, but indoors, they were building something stable, each friend adding a piece to the puzzle. Each idea felt like grains of hope washed upon the shores of their dreams. As they spent hours figuring out who would bake what and how they could spread the word, Rosie looked at her friends, and a sense of validation washed over her. They were in this together, like hermit crabs, finding comfort in each other's shells. No one would be alone in this, and together they could face both the storm outside and the fears within. Yet as they wrapped up their meeting, a chill ran down Rosie's spine. What if Grandma said no? What if this dream crumbled before it even began? She pushed the thoughts aside but couldn't shake the creeping worry. Wow, we have a lot to do, Linda said, breaking the silence. But I really believe we can do this. Me too, Rosie echoed, a smile breaking through her worry. But let us not forget what we're facing, and let us promise to lean on each other if things get tough. Agreement rippled through the group. The storm outside rattled the windows once more, sending a shiver through the room. Tomorrow is going to be the beginning, Marco said, determination lining his voice, building anticipation. Just then, another thunderstorm roared through, causing them all to jump, and Rosie felt her heart race anew. Outside was chaos, inside, hope was building. But would the storm bring something more than just winds and rain? Would it unlock truths they weren't ready to face, or would it lead them to the adventure they all desperately needed? As Rosie glanced at her friends, she felt that familiar flutter of uncertainty alongside an exhilarating thrill. Tomorrow promised to be a new beginning, but what hidden fears would surface along the way? The sun rose the next morning, timidly shining through the gray clouds, casting a soft glow over Rosie's kitchen. With her phone clutched tightly in hand, she paced back and forth, anticipation buzzing in her veins. Each step echoed with excitement and dread, bringing her closer to the moment everything could change. Just call her, she whispered to herself, her heart thumping like a drum. Finally, she hit the call button. The ringing felt endless, a buildup of emotions swirling in her chest until finally, her grandma's cheerful voice greeted her. Rosie. What a nice surprise. Hi, Grandma. I wanted to talk about the beach house. There was a brief pause. Rosie could almost hear her grandma's smile through the phone. Oh, the beach house. I'd forgotten about it. You all want to come visit? Yes. Rosie breathed, half expecting the line to crackle from the excitement. We want to plan a trip, there's a big group of us. Of course, dear. I'll always have room for you and your friends. Let us see, next weekend might work, but you need to raise some funds first, right? Rosie glanced at her reflection in the microwave, the apprehension still radiating from her. Yeah, we've been trying to think of ways. Why not hold a big celebration? Invite the neighbors, make a real event out of it. I can help with snacks. Rosie felt a burst of warmth spreading through her chest. Grandma, that's brilliant. She hung up feeling lighter. It was more than just a yes. Grandma was all in, ready to help them pave the way for an unforgettable adventure. When she came back into the living room, her friends were gathered, chatting animatedly. Susan was drawing up some flyers on a piece of paper while Marco hurriedly jotted down notes beside her. The chatter faded as Rosie walked in, a grin stretching across her face. I talked to Grandma. What did she say? They all asked at once, eyes wide with hope. She's on board. We can have a party at the beach house next weekend. The room erupted in cheers, embraces, and high fives, laughter dancing in the air as they celebrated the good news. But amidst the excitement, Rosie felt that nagging whisper again. The questions felt heavier than before. Wait, but how do we get there? She frowned. What about all the costs? Susan's smile faded. Linda nodded, looking thoughtful. We still need money for gas, food, and the materials for the celebration. What if we don't raise enough? The joy in the room dimmed, their laughter flickering like a candle in the wind. Rosie's heart sank again, battling with the fear that crept back in. Let us not think about that right now. We can do this. Marco said quickly. If we all pitch in, we can make it work, right? Yes. Susan replied, her usual energy returning. And let us be creative with fundraising. We could turn the bake sale into a community event, bake-off style. Everyone began brainstorming ideas again, the initial fear starting to dissolve in the warm sunlight streaming in. They kicked around plans for a vibrant flyer, tossing suggestions back and forth until the room buzzed again. Rosie felt a flicker of hope reigniting in her heart. But as the discussions unfolded, another thought gnawed at her. What if they did bring everyone together, only to have someone pull out last minute, leaving them scrambling? She leaned on the counter, biting her lip, her inner doubts resurfacing. Okay, let us assign tasks. Linda exclaimed. We need a leader to coordinate. Rosie, what do you think? The spotlight landed on Rosie. Her anxiety twisted like a knot in her stomach. Was she ready for this? I can try, she said, though the uncertainty lingered. Perfect. We believe in you. Susan chimed, giving her an encouraging nudge. As everyone went back to their tasks, Rosie stood back, feeling the weight of their expectations, mingling with the thrill of the unknown. Every second felt like a step closer to either a breakthrough or a breakdown. What if they couldn't achieve their dream? Could she really lead them through it all? As they worked, the storm of emotions inside her swirled with hope and doubt. But the glimmers of encouragement from her friends were enough to keep her going. Let us make this happen, she whispered to herself. Yet, in her heart, she couldn't ignore the lingering fear that something might still go wrong. Was she ready to embrace this adventure, or would her worries ultimately pull them all back? The week leading up to their beach retreat was a whirlwind of activity. Flyers decorated every neighborhood mailbox, baked goods filled every corner of Rosie's kitchen, and laughter echoed through the air as the group hustled to ensure success. Each sunrise brought a fresh hope, each sunset a reminder of what was to come. Rosie felt the familiar flutter of excitement and anxiety intertwined. Every day brought new challenges, but they embraced them together. They hosted bake-offs that turned into community potlucks, neighbors brought goods, stories, and support, each lending energy to their cause. Rosie marveled at how people rallied around each other, creating bonds from the fabric of shared passion and purpose. Rosie, look at those sales. We might just break the bank. Marco grinned, thrusting their tally sheet into her hands after a particularly successful bake sale. And right there, in that moment, Rosie saw not just a collection of friends, but a community blossoming. It's amazing what happens when we come together, isn't it? I never expected this kind of support, she replied, her voice covered in awe. But amidst the celebration, Rosie still battled her inner fears. What if tomorrow doesn't go as we hope? What if the money doesn't stretch far enough or things fall apart at the beach? You have to trust the process, Linda would say during their late-night planning sessions. We've come this far. Just embrace the moment. The day finally arrived, bright and beautiful, the kind of day that brushed aside worries. Rosie stood at the beach house entrance, the air salty and welcoming, while her friends unloaded car trunks stuffed full of supplies, laughter bubbling all around. But as they stepped inside, Rosie hesitated, feeling that familiar pull of uncertainty creeping back. The beach house stood strong, but she couldn't shake the fear of disappointment. Maybe this isn't how I envisioned it, she murmured, glancing at the piles of decorations, the spread of treats, and all the faces alight with hope. Hey, how about we start with a toast? Marco's voice broke through her thoughts, and the group gathered around, cups raised high in the air. To friendship. They all cheered. It was a simple gesture, but one that tethered their hearts. Slowly, as the day unfolded, barriers began to melt away. Old tensions seemed trivial in the glimmer of the surf, laughter mingling with the lapping waves. Rosie watched as they all got immersed in the joy of the moment, children building sandcastles, adults mingling over refreshments, and the beach house becoming a living, breathing testament to their struggles and successes. Look at how far we've come, Rosie thought, a pang of warmth surging through her. That storm forced us to confront our vulnerabilities, and now we're here. She glanced at Susan, who shared a radiant smile, her laughter mingling with Marco's and Linda's. But just as she was ready to let go of her fears, she saw dark clouds forming off in the distance. Guys, Rosie called softly, dread creeping in. Is anyone else seeing that? The laughter faded, and suddenly uncertainty loomed like a fresh storm on the horizon, yet, before panic could settle, something extraordinary happened. Marco stepped forward, determination etched across his facial features. Hey look, we've faced a storm before and we survived, right? Let us embrace it. If it rains, we can turn this place into a grand adventure. In that moment, Rosie realized they faced much more than just nature's fury. They had become resilient, learning to navigate challenges collectively. Together, we can weather anything, Linda added, her trust spilling forth. If we did it once, we can do it again. As the first raindrops fell, Rosie felt the shift around her immediate, electric. Okay. She shouted, gaze fierce. Let us make this the best rain party. We've worked so hard, we're going to enjoy every moment no matter what. Cheers erupted, and soon they were dancing in the rain, laughter blending with the sound of the tide. They embraced the storm, truthfully recounting stories of how they transformed hidden fears into actions. As the rain poured, their bond solidified, offering a shield against anything life could throw at them. Standing in the downpour, Rosie felt every worry wash away, the memories of loss, fear, and anxiety battered against them but cracked open space for buoyancy, laughter, and joy. As the sun peeked through the gray clouds, casting an ethereal glow, Rosie looked around at her friends. We did it, she whispered, her heart swelling with gratitude. We really did it. That day marked a new beginning for them all, an affirmation of their strength, friendship, and belief in one another. No matter what storms lay in their paths, Rosie knew they could face them, side by side. Close to her friends, she felt a surge of love and unity, timeless, eternal as the ocean. They had conquered more than just a storm, they had transformed their struggles into memories that would last a lifetime. And as the vibrant hues of sunset spilled across the horizon, Rosie whispered, let us always choose each other. Because in the dance of storms and sunsets, she found a truth deeper than fear, friendship was their anchor, and together, they were unbreakable. Now's the time to act. If you loved this powerful transformation, you need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss out on future exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support us. Comment below with your feelings about this ending. You can't imagine how much we want to hear from you. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to see this transformation. Show them the power of friendship today.